let's talk about megamonsoons. Way back when, 230 million or so years ago, back when there was just one continent, Pangaea, and one ocean, Panthalassa, there was some funky weather. The Earth was a hell of a lot warmer. There was no ice pretty much anywhere, not even on the poles. It was basically like living in a sauna. The equator was pretty much inhabitable because it was so hot and dry and desolate all over. And despite the fact that comparatively the poles were a lot warmer than they are today, it was nothing compared to the equator. The equator was like ridiculously hot. So there was a very, very large temperature difference between the equator of the continent and the poles of the continent. And vast differences in air temperature causes the winds to do some very, very interesting things, especially of air currents moving around the planet, north to south, etc., etc. But when the seasons changed from, spring, summer, fall, winter, so did these air currents. And that caused some pretty freaky weather. The changing of the air currents causes an exchange of the wet and dry seasons, and that caused these big-ass continental storms. And when there's only one continent, a continental storm is a pretty big fucking storm. The weather would have been extremely extreme, with floods large enough to wipe away a large part of the local geography, swipe away any early dinosaur ancestors, and bury them in mudslides, which would lead to fossilization. The shifting of the seasons between wet and dry, it mainly occurred in coastal and more polar regions, with the equator pretty much staying a uninhabitable hell desert for most of the year. But the areas where the megamonsoons occurred did have marked wet and dry seasons, the wet being characterized by these big fucking storms, and the dry by the lack of them. In addition to causing these extreme weather patterns, the megamonsoons on Pangaea helped establish some different geographic ranges based on weather. Again, there was these super dry, arid regions, but there was also some more tame, temperate regions that didn't have extreme heat or extreme storms. Basically, any biome you can think of characterized by the different vegetation that was available due to the different types of precipitation and different types of weather. Now, there are, of course, monsoons in today's climate, but they are much smaller and much more geographically contained due to the different geography of the planet. There are no longer one massive continent, so there's no longer one massive monsoon sweeping across large areas of that continent. And while modern monsoons do wreak a lot of havoc in modern times, it's not nearly as destructive and powerful as the ancient ones. Pangaea was very much not a hospitable place for anything to live. Not only because of the weather, but live they did because life finds a way.